In the bustling heart of Lahore, within the walls of Punjab University, Alina, a 23-year-old student, pursued her master's in business administration with a fierce ambition. Not far from the university's gates, in a neighborhood woven into the fabric of Lahore's daily hustle, lived Usman. At 26, Usman had recently returned from Dubai, where he had ventured to explore business opportunities that seemed as shiny and promising as the city itself. However, the reality he encountered was tougher, the challenges more complex than anticipated, leaving him to return to Lahore. Between the towering academic buildings and the scattered notes of student laughter, there lay a popular cafe. It was a quaint spot often buzzing with the energy of students and the warmth of local residents. The cafe served as a crossroads of lives and stories, a place where coffee brewed richly and conversations ran deep. It was here that the paths of Alina and Usman were destined to intertwine, drawn together by proximity and a shared presence in the pulse of the city's vibrant life. In the serenity of the small cafe, nestled beside the bustling campus of Punjab University, Alina found a sanctuary where she could escape the academic pressures and immerse herself in her studies. On a day when the cafe was unusually crowded, the hum of conversation louder than usual, Alina walked in seeking her usual quiet corner. Her eyes scanned the room, finding every table occupied, save for one. There, Usman sat alone, his presence marked by an open laptop and a scattering of papers which suggested a man deeply engaged in his own world of thoughts and plans. Hesitant yet compelled by necessity, Alina approached Usman. Her voice, polite and slightly hesitant, broke through his focus. "May I join you?" she asked, indicating the empty seat. Usman looked up, his initial surprise transitioning into a welcoming smile. "Of course," he responded, gesturing to the chair with a gracious nod. As Alina settled into the seat, a subtle shift occurred. What began as a mere sharing of physical space, born out of convenience, subtly laid the groundwork for something more profound. The shared table in the corner of the cafe became the starting point of their acquaintance, a simple act of courtesy blooming into an encounter that would gently ripple through their lives. Amidst the gentle hum of the cafe, Alina and Usman's first conversation unfolded as naturally as the steam rising from their coffee cups. It began with a casual remark from Usman, his eyes drawn to the stack of heavy textbooks that Alina placed carefully on the table. "Business administration, right?" he asked, a note of recognition in his voice as he gestured towards the books. "Yes, it's quite a load but fascinating," Alina replied, a spark of eagerness lighting up her eyes. Her response opened the door to a deeper exchange. Usman, sensing a kindred spirit in her dedication, began sharing his own journey. In the weeks that followed, Alina and Usman found themselves meeting at the cafe more often, each visit less about chance and more about choice. What began as sharing a table by coincidence grew into regular coffee dates, where they would set time aside to delve deeper into conversations that spanned beyond the academic. As autumn swept through Lahore, their relationship grew richer against the backdrop of golden leaves and crisp mornings at the cafe. Their conversations began to touch on more personal topics. One evening, under the soft glow of the cafe's fairy lights, Usman took Alina's hands into his gaze earnest and deep. He shared his feelings, telling her that she was not just a partner but his equal and inspiration. Alina, moved by his sincerity, reciprocated with a heartfelt affirmation of her love. This exchange marked a new chapter in their relationship. After months of deepening their connection and nurturing their affection, Alina and Usman decided to spend a more intimate evening together. Usman invited Alina to his apartment, a cozy and modest space just a short walk from her campus. The apartment felt welcoming as Alina stepped inside, greeted by the aroma of dinner that Usman had prepared. Over dinner, their conversation flowed effortlessly, gradually drifting into more personal realms. They shared their vulnerabilities, strengthening the bond they had carefully built over time. As the evening progressed, they sat closer together on the couch. Usman tenderly brushed a strand of hair from Alina's face, drawing a quiet moment of connection. Their eyes locked, and all the unspoken emotions surfaced in that gaze. Sensing the depth of their mutual feelings, Usman leaned in slowly for a kiss, allowing Alina the space to withdraw. Instead, she moved closer, their lips meeting in a tender, exploratory kiss that quickly deepened as their emotions took the helm. The initial kiss evolved into gentle touches, their physical connection mirroring the emotional intimacy they felt. Led by their shared feelings, they moved to the bedroom, where the atmosphere was charged with a respectful intensity. The soft lighting and their combined desire created a space that felt both intense and serene. Alina, though nervous at first, felt a deep trust in Usman, reassured by the emotional journey they had shared. Later, as they lay wrapped in each other's embrace, a profound sense of peace and fulfillment enveloped them. The intimacy they experienced that night deepened their relationship, marking a new phase where their emotional and physical connections were intricately intertwined. Each day seemed to draw them closer, their bond intensifying as they intertwined their lives more deeply. Beneath the surface of their joy and love, subtle strains of unease lingered. Occasionally, Usman seemed distant, his brow creased with worry when he thought Alina wasn't watching. Phone calls were abruptly ended as she approached, and his explanations, while plausible, seemed rushed and somewhat evasive. She was blissfully unaware of the fragile underpinnings of the world they were crafting together. The secrets Usman was keeping were poised to undermine their shared dreams. As their love soared to new peaks, the shadows cast by these hidden truths deepened, threatening to dim the luminosity of their bond. Unbeknownst to Alina, the life she treasured with Usman was on the brink of facing challenges far beyond her wildest anticipations. On a seemingly ordinary Lahore morning, Alina woke up earlier than usual. The room was softly illuminated by the early light, with Usman still deep in sleep beside her. Driven by a wish to start the day positively, she decided to make breakfast, hoping for a peaceful morning together. As she quietly stepped out of the bedroom, something unusual caught her eye. On the side table in the living room, tucked under some scattered papers, was a small, clear plastic bag. Driven by a sudden curiosity, Alina moved closer and felt a chill run through her as she saw it contained a white powdery substance. In a heartbeat she recognized it as drugs. The discovery halted her in her tracks. Memories and recent events started connecting in her mind. Usman's erratic behaviors, his evasive answers about why he left Dubai, his unexplained absences. It dawned on her painfully that Usman's return to Lahore was not driven merely by business motives but also by a darker need for easier access to drugs. With her heart sinking and mind whirling, Alina carefully put the bag back exactly where she had found it. She chose not to awaken Usman or confront him immediately. She needed time to absorb this shocking revelation on her own, to fully grasp the extent of the deceit she had just uncovered. Alina then walked into the kitchen, her movements automatic as she started preparing breakfast. Yet, her thoughts were far away, wrestling with the grim reality of Usman's addiction and the profound implications it could have on their shared future. The morning that began with the simple intention of sharing a loving meal was now overshadowed by a heavy cloud of betrayal and secrecy. After quietly leaving Usman's apartment, Alina made her way back to her own home, engulfed by a profound sense of disorientation. The unsettling discovery of Usman's struggle with drug addiction shattered her once idyllic vision of their future together. Over the next 2 days, her life seemed to pause as if suspended in animation. Her usual routines and academic commitments turned into burdensome chores navigated with mechanical motions. Alina's emotions swung wildly between disbelief, sorrow, and a deep sense of betrayal. The man she had envisioned a shared future with had concealed a part of his life so dark that it now cast long shadows over their happiest moments together. Consumed by the implications of Usman's addiction, she found herself distracted and withdrawn, unable to focus on her daily tasks. By the end of the second day, the initial shock had evolved into a somber resolve. Alina recognized that she could not allow this situation to continue any longer. It was clear that something fundamental had to change. She could no longer pretend that everything was normal in their relationship. With a heavy heart but a clear mind, Alina braced herself to make a decision that would irrevocably change the course of their relationship. During the tense days following her disheartening discovery, Usman's worry intensified as Alina became increasingly distant. He bombarded her with texts and calls, each more desperate than the last, trying to grasp the reason behind her sudden change in demeanor. Despite his persistent attempts, Alina did not respond to his calls or texts. Every missed connection heightened his anxiety, leaving him bewildered and deeply concerned about the sudden silence enveloping their relationship. On the other side, Alina had reached a resolute decision. She realized that her future could not include a partner grappling with a hidden drug addiction. This decision solidified over 2 days filled with deep reflection and emotional turmoil. She comprehended the full weight of what a life with Usman would entail under these strained circumstances and concluded that it was not the future she desired for herself. Her silence served as the initial step toward separation, an unspoken declaration of the space she needed to create between them. The next day, as Alina was leaving the university, her thoughts churned with the recent upheaval. Usman appeared suddenly, snapping her back to the stark reality. Standing there, his face marred by frustration and confusion, he quickly closed the distance between them, his raised voice capturing the attention of students nearby. "Alina, why aren't you answering my calls? Why are you avoiding me?" His voice, desperate and tinged with distress, marked a stark departure from his usual calm. Alina, startled by his public confrontation, was initially silent, her determination solidifying under the gaze of Usman and the onlooking students. Gathering her resolve, she finally responded, her voice steady yet edged with unmistakable coldness. "I can't do this anymore, Usman. I can't be with someone who's addicted and conceals it from me. It's over," she declared, her words slicing through the surrounding clamor, clear and irrevocable. Usman, taken aback by her forthrightness and the starkness of her admission, was left speechless. Her words reverberated around them, pausing the world in a moment of profound realization of their relationship's demise. Though brief, the confrontation was a jarring end to their once hopeful narrative. Alina turned and walked away, leaving Usman alone in the wake of their shattered dreams, her heart heavy with the weight of her final decision. The gravity of their confrontation at the university left Usman not only shocked but also desperate. The realization that Alina was serious about ending their relationship sent him into a panic, his judgment clouded, worsened by his ongoing drug use. That evening, as darkness enveloped Lahore, Usman's thoughts descended into despair. In a last-ditch effort to salvage what remained of their relationship, he sent Alina a series of increasingly pleading messages. "Please, Alina, don't do this. We can work things out," one message read. "I need you and I'll change for you," implored another. Yet, Alina, steadfast in her decision to cut ties, remained unresponsive. Her silence only fueled Usman's growing anxiety, pushing him toward a reckless and ultimately destructive decision. In a moment of sheer desperation, Usman crossed a line from which there could be no return. The next morning, when Alina checked her phone, she was met with a chilling threat. Her messages contained images and a video of their private moments together, intimate memories that Usman had now turned into weapons. Accompanying these visuals was a text, his words icy and manipulative. "If you don't come back, everyone will see these." The shock of the threat struck Alina hard. What started as disbelief quickly morphed into profound fear and anger. Usman's drastic actions were not just a violation of her privacy but a deep betrayal of the trust she had once placed in him. This confirmed her darkest fears about the man she once loved and cemented her resolve never to return to him. In the days that ensued, Alina was engulfed in a relentless storm of emotions. Each hour that ticked by underscored the precarious situation she found herself in, caught between Usman's escalating threats and the potential disgrace she might bring upon her family. Her thoughts were haunted by fears of disappointment and the profound shame that could befall her family should Usman act on his threats. In her conservative family, the scandal would not only tarnish her but would also envelop her entire family, heightening the gravity of her dilemma. As she reflected on her relationship with Usman, Alina's regret deepened. She chastised herself for not recognizing the signs sooner, for letting herself become so deeply involved with someone capable of such profound betrayal. "How could I have been so blind?" she lamented, alone in her room. Her distress was tangible, her quiet sobs resonating against the walls, mirroring the turmoil within. As Alina's silence persisted, Usman's desperation escalated. His messages, once pleading, turned frequent and increasingly hostile. "Think about what you're doing, Alina. Do you really want to ruin everything?" one message implored, soon followed by another more ominous one. "This is your last chance, come back or I'll do it." "I'm not kidding." His threats, far from idle, posed a real and imminent threat to Alina's reputation and mental well-being. With each new message from Usman, a wave of fear surged through Alina. The gravity of her circumstances was stark. She was no longer merely striving to reclaim her emotional independence. She was now also fighting to safeguard her dignity and her family's honor, both of which hung precariously in the balance. Overwhelmed by fear and frustration, and with Usman's threats escalating, Alina reached a breaking point. She felt cornered, desperate to reclaim control of her life and protect her dignity. Remembering that her father, a retired government official, kept a licensed handgun at home for security, Alina found herself contemplating a solution she never thought she would consider. Late one night, when the house was quiet, she retrieved the gun from her father's luggage, her hands trembling as she held the weapon, a stark symbol of her desperation. Unsure of how to operate it, she turned to the internet for guidance. After watching several instructional videos on YouTube, Alina cautiously went up to the roof of her house. She fired 2 rounds into the air, the loud bangs echoing in the still night. The recoil shocked her, but each pull of the trigger made her feel a bitter sense of empowerment. Now she felt confident enough to use it if necessary. The next morning, as if timed by fate, Usman sent another message, his tone more threatening than before. He demanded they meet, labeling it her final chance to reconcile. Alina, who had been bracing for such a moment, responded without hesitation, agreeing to the meeting. Arriving at Usman's apartment, Alina's heart thudded with a potent mix of fear and determination. The handgun, discreetly tucked away in her purse, served as a grim reminder of the drastic measures she felt compelled to take to protect herself. As night descended, Usman's apartment was a scene of stark contrasts. Usman himself was visibly elated, almost victorious, convinced that his coercive tactics had successfully drawn Alina back to him. He greeted her with a self-assured, smug smile, fully believing that the threat of his actions had forced her into submission. Alina, on the other hand, presented a facade of tranquility, effectively concealing the tumult of determination and anger simmering within her. They sat down to a meal together, during which Usman enthusiastically discussed their future, seemingly unaware of Alina's noncommittal and distant replies. As the evening progressed, Usman, satisfied with what he perceived as the mending of their relationship, relaxed on the bed, completely letting his guard down. Excusing herself, Alina slipped into the bathroom, feigning a need to freshen up. Inside, her hands were steady as she reached into her purse, her fingers curling around the cold metal of the gun. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the confrontation ahead, and then stepped back into the room. Usman, lounging comfortably on the bed, looked up at her with a lazy smile. His expression faltered, shifting to confusion and concern as he noticed the grim determination etched on her face. "Alina, what's wrong? Why do you look like that?" he asked, his voice tinged with worry. Alina, her arm outstretched, the gun aimed directly at Usman, responded with a voice cold and distant, "Usman, did you ever love me, or was it all just a game to you?" Usman's eyes widened in alarm as he registered the sight of the gun. "Alina, put that down. We can talk about this." "Whatever you're thinking, it's not necessary," he stammered, attempting to rise from the bed. "No, Usman, I needed to see if you would stop, if you had any remorse." "But you don't," Alina declared, her voice resolute, her hand unwavering. "You threatened to ruin my life, to expose our private moments to the world. You left me no choice." As Usman's pleas grew more desperate, he reached out towards her. "Alina, please think about what you're doing. You don't want to do this. We can fix this." But Alina's mind was made up, her resolve as firm as the grip on her gun. "There's no wheat anymore, Usman. You made sure of that." As the tension in the room reached its zenith, Alina's resolve crystallized. A gunshot rang out, resonating starkly through the space, a definitive, final note to their tumultuous relationship. The echo of the shot lingered in the air, marking the irreversible end of what had once been a hopeful union. 2 days after Usman's last known communication, concern mounted when one of his business partners, unable to reach him despite numerous attempts, noticed the uncharacteristic silence. Usman, known for his prompt replies, had not responded, prompting the partner to contact the local police with fears of his disappearance. Detective Mumtaz, a seasoned officer with over 15 years of service, was assigned to the case. His first course of action was to visit Usman's apartment. Upon arrival, he found the door securely locked and no response from inside, which escalated his concerns. The detective then directed the forensic department to track Usman's mobile phone. The data retrieved showed that the phone's last known location was inside the apartment, indicating possible foul play. With the phone trace providing probable cause, Detective Mumtaz secured authorization to force entry. The scene inside was unsettlingly quiet. The apartment appeared untouched except for the grim discovery of Usman's body in the bedroom, suggesting a sudden, violent incident. Backup and paramedics were immediately called to the scene, confirming that Usman had been deceased for roughly 2 days. The investigation quickly shifted from a missing person case to a homicide inquiry. The apartment was sealed off as a crime scene, and forensic teams meticulously searched for fingerprints, DNA, and other potential evidence. Usman's body was sent for an autopsy, which confirmed death by a gunshot wound at close range from behind, pointing to an execution-style killing. This sinister finding intensified the probe as Detective Mumtaz delved deeper into the circumstances surrounding Usman's tragic demise. Detective Mumtaz approached the investigation with heightened urgency following the grim discovery of Usman's manner of death. This revelation propelled the case into a full-scale murder investigation. Mumtaz and his team embarked on a comprehensive inquiry, conducting extensive interviews with Usman's friends, family, and business associates to gather insights and uncover potential motives. Simultaneously, Detective Mumtaz delved into Usman's digital and financial life, scrutinizing his phone records and financial statements for any anomalies or clues that could point to a motive or identify a suspect. Every piece of information was meticulously analyzed to build a coherent picture of Usman's connections and interactions in the weeks leading up to his death. As the shock of the crime rippled through the community, the pressure to solve the case intensified. The public's growing concern and the media's attention spurred the investigation team to work around the clock. Detective Mumtaz was acutely aware that time was of the essence. Every passing moment could potentially allow the perpetrator to distance themselves further from capture. Determined and persistent, Mumtaz and his team pursued every lead with vigor, committed to bringing justice to Usman and providing some solace to a community shaken by the violence. As Detective Mumtaz delved deeper into Usman's phone records, a distinct pattern began to surface. The bulk of Usman's interactions were with 2 primary contacts, Alina and his business partner, the same individual who had reported him missing. The business partner had also provided insights into Usman's fraught relationship with Alina, raising suspicions and leading the police to mark her as a person of interest in the investigation. With this information at hand, Detective Mumtaz took steps to have Alina brought in for questioning. At first, Alina strongly denied any involvement in Usman's demise. Her composure, however, faltered dramatically when Detective Mumtaz revealed surveillance footage from Usman's apartment complex. The video clearly showed Alina exiting the building around the time Usman was believed to have died. Faced with irrefutable evidence, Alina's defenses collapsed. She tearfully confessed that the relationship had deteriorated severely, strained by Usman's escalating drug use and his manipulative threats to release their private videos should she attempt to leave. Caught between fear and desperation, Alina admitted that she felt compelled to take drastic measures. Ending Usman's life was an act of self-preservation, a desperate bid to protect her own privacy and future from destruction. Based on Alina's confession and the corroborating evidence from Usman's phone records and CCTV footage, Alina was swiftly arrested and charged with third-degree murder. The legal proceedings progressed rapidly, fueled by the clear evidence and her admission of guilt. In the courtroom, the prosecution presented a strong and compelling case against her. The evidence laid before the court was incontrovertible. Alina's own confession clearly articulated her actions and intentions. The CCTV footage captured her leaving Usman's apartment close to the time of his death, placing her at the scene, and the extensive records from Usman's phone painted a picture of a deeply troubled relationship, providing a clear motive. These elements combined to form a comprehensive narrative for the prosecution, illustrating not just the act itself but the complex emotional and psychological backdrop that led to it. After a brief trial, the court convicted Alina of third-degree murder, handing down a 25-year prison sentence without the possibility of parole. The harshness of the sentence reflected not only the gravity of the crime but also the premeditated nature of Alina's actions, including her efforts to secure the gun and learn how to use it effectively. As the judge's gavel struck, marking the end of the proceedings, Alina was escorted away, her future drastically and irrevocably changed. The outcome of the trial left a deep impression on everyone involved, sparking widespread discussions about the legal and moral boundaries of self-defense, the severe consequences of blackmail, and the desperate measures people might take when pushed to their limits. This case highlighted the tragic extremes to which individuals might resort under the weight of coercion and fear, challenging societal norms and legal standards surrounding such acts.